Welcome back to the Retrograde Karmic Masterclass. Today we face our fiercest teacher, Mars or Mangal. I want to start with a set of powerful questions that define the Mars retrograde experience. And then we'll go through all the 12 houses of Mars retrograde. Do you constantly struggle with starting battles that you can't finish? Or feel crippling anxiety about confrontation? Why do you repeatedly doubt your own strength or feel that your aggressive efforts are constantly blocked? Why do you struggle to sustain consistent energy toward your goals? If you have retrograde Mars in your natal birth chart, your soul signed up for the ultimate redo assignment, which is courage and direction. Mars retrograde is here to teach you how to turn your raw willpower, which is your bull, inward and resolve internal conflicts and strategize your action before you launch it. You are wired to constantly redirect, reassert, and rearm your inner spiritual warrior. Let's walk through all 12 houses right now so you can pinpoint the exact battlefield where your soul keeps sending you back to master your own power. To follow along, please go ahead and click on the links in the video description for our foundational videos of houses and planets and the soul map and your natal chart, how to read it. Definitely check that. So find the house where your retrograde Mars sits and discover the karmic lesson that is forcing you to redefine your strength and courage from the inside out. Let's talk about your first house of self and identity. If you have a retrograde Mars here, your core lesson is self-assertion and personal courage. You constantly reevaluate your strength. You struggle with initiating action, the right action, or express your will through sudden bursts of anger. So you may express a lot of action. Now the universe forces you to redirect your energy into building a highly unique, unshakable sense of self-courage that isn't dependent on external fighting. Let's talk about your second house of wealth and speech. The lesson here is about aggression in finances and speech. You might constantly reassess how you earn money. You might struggle with impulsive spending or express anger through sharp, aggressive words. The karmic redo is to learn to master the energy of your voice and use your discipline to stabilize your financial assets rather than fighting to acquire them. Now let's talk about your third house, which is a house of effort and willpower, parakram, and communication. This is where you constantly rethink your motivation and effort. You might repeatedly start projects with great enthusiasm, only to lose stamina or have recurring conflicts with siblings or neighbors. This is with Mars retrograde in third house. The mastery will come from learning to internalize your motivation and developing a silent, consistent effort that does not rely on competitive external drive. Let's talk about Mars retrograde in the fourth house of home, emotional security, mother, family environment, happiness. Mars here forces you to re-examine anger and conflict within the home. You might constantly reassess conflicts with family members or struggle with a feeling of internal restlessness or frequently rearrange your living space aggressively. The lesson is learning to master emotional defense and transform internal resentment into clarity and boundary setting. Now let's talk about your fifth house. If Mars is retrograde in your fifth house of romance and creativity and children, this is a profound lesson in courageous self-expression and risk. You repeatedly reevaluate your romantic initiatives or struggle with creative blocks or express anger even with your children through passive aggression towards children. The universe demands that you rechannel your aggression into focused, disciplined, creative works and conscious, loving leadership. Let's talk about your 6th house of service and conflict and disease and debt. Your lesson is about assertion and service and health management. You might constantly reassess your job. You might struggle with confrontation with colleagues, or you might experience repeated inflammatory health issues. Mastery comes when you assert your boundaries clearly in the workplace and use Mars's energy to fiercely defend your own well-being and health routine. Mars here generally gives you great results, but when it's retrograde, you repeat the lessons. Now let's talk about 7th house of partnerships and marriage, your spouse. This is the ultimate lesson in conflict resolution and balanced assertion in relationships. You repeatedly reevaluate partners, struggle with power dynamics, or attract partners who challenge your authority. Mars retrograde. The redo is to learn to master non-aggressive assertion, transforming power struggles into constructive shared strategy. Let's talk about your 8th house, Mars retrograde. It's 8th houses of transformation, joint resources. Mars forces you to constantly re-examine power and control over shared resources and hidden issues. You might repeatedly reassess debts, struggle with deep intimacy and trust, or express sudden aggressive outbursts of jealousy. The lesson is learning to master deep internal courage and trust the powerful forces of transformation without needing to control them. Let's talk about your 9th house Mars retrograde of Dharma and your belief system, gurus, teachers, higher learning. This is a perpetual reassessment of your ethical courage and philosophical beliefs and of your higher learning. You might constantly rethink the moral justification of your actions or struggle to defend your deepest beliefs. Mastery is achieved when you value your own inner truth and use your power to defend justice and higher ethics, which is Dharma. Let's talk about Mars in your 10th house, retrograde Mars, of career and status. Your karmic lesson is focused on ambition and authority. You might repeatedly reevaluate your leadership style, struggle with authority figures, or feel that your career efforts are constantly blocked because you got to redo everything. The universe demands that you redefine ambition based on self-generated discipline and learn to lead with focused, ethical power. Let's talk about Mars retrograde in your 11th house of networks and gains, your friends. This is the re-evaluation of group action and collective goals. You might constantly reassess your role in groups. You might struggle with asserting yourself in social networks, or you might experience recurring friction with friends over goals or your social networks over goals. The redo is to restructure your network to ensure that your collaborative efforts align with your disciplined personal ambitions. Let's talk about the 12th house of loss, subconscious, moksha, isolation, foreign settlement. This is the most internalized lesson, revising subconscious anger and self-defeating action. You might struggle with articulating hidden resentments, feeling guilty about asserting yourself, or you might engage in repeated self-sabotage. Now, mastery comes from learning to master the inner landscape, using discipline to clear subconscious blocks and transforming guilt into clear, purposeful action. So if you have natal retrograde Mars, what is the ultimate unifying spiritual assignment that the universe is telling you? It is to realize that true strength is an internal strategy. It's not about aggression. The universe put Mars retrograde in your chart because your past life tendency was likely to act too impulsively or too aggressively or without sufficient thought, causing damage. The retrograde forces you to turn that powerful energy inward. The mastery comes when you realize that your perceived lack of external speed is actually the universe forcing you to become a brilliant strategist. You become a powerful spiritual warrior because you fought and mastered the conflict inside yourself first. And let me tell you how transit works. How does transit triggers it? So when Mars is retrograde in the sky while transiting, that's when the universe forces you to confront the conflict directly or aggressively. External action slows, willpower seems difficult, and old battles may flare up. Instead of pushing externally during the transit, you honor it by focusing on the internal strategy and self-discipline. When Mars is transiting over your natal retrograde Mars or aspecting it, don't fight at that time, but plan. Don't rush, but refine. Don't explode, but assert. Look at the boundary protocol from the last series that we did. Now, your natal retrograde Mars is not a sign of weakness. It is a blessing that promises a level of self-control and the strategic depth that is unmatched. This planet makes you capable of leading with ethical, focused power once you fully claim your own internal battlefield. All right, let's turn this powerful knowledge into tangible action before we move to the slower outer planets, yet really powerful ones, Jupiter and Saturn. First, let's lock in your lesson. Tell me in the comments, based on the house placement that we just covered, what is the one core area of conflict or self-doubt that retrograde Mars is forcing you to redirect? For example, master emotional defense in the home, if Mars is in your 4th house retrograde. Redefine ambition through discipline, if Mars is retrograde in your 6th house. Or master non-aggressive assertion with partners, if it's in your 7th house. Second, let's practice the pause and strategize. Today, before you react to any frustrating situation, commit to pausing for 5 seconds and asking yourself, what is the most ethical, least aggressive way to assert my boundaries here? This small act of focused internal strategy begins the process of mastering your natal Mars right now. And share this video with anyone you know who struggles with anger, chronic procrastination, or destructive conflict. This clarity is truly vital. Our journey next time, video number 4, Jupiter and Saturn retrogrades. These karmic giants, we're going to talk about them in the 12 houses. These are the slower, deeper lessons of wisdom, structure, in massive life structuring. You do not want to miss this final synthesis. So hit the notification bell right now so you can be notified whenever we launch the conclusion. And if you'd like to deep dive into your own personal chart, reach out to me via the link in the video description or in the About section. And definitely check out the foundational videos that are there in the video description. You know, they tell you about our soul map, why are we here, what are the different houses, how to read your chart, what are the different houses in the chart, what do the planets represent, everything. You definitely don't want to miss that, so click in the video description to check out that. And if you found this video helpful, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and thank yourself for watching. That's all for today.